Hi everyone and welcome to today's episode, and as I promised last episode, we now have the addition of Joe and Skylar with us, so for the adventure to continue for the three of us now.
So Skylar and I drove up to Scotland last night, and it is fair to say Skylar was very excited to see Tim again after 3 weeks of just being with me.
We tell you we're coming to see Daddy. We tell you.
Since then we had a nice meal last night, and we've been out shopping to get some provisions this morning, and we are about ready to cast off the lines from here at Ardfern Yacht Centre, and I think we're going to be heading north to hopefully the Isle of Mull, Loch Spelve, but we'll have to see how the weather goes a little bit later in the day. How are you feeling about setting off, Joe?
I'm quite happy it's not raining, so that's a good start.
Yeah, later on the introductory offer of no rain for the first hour. We'll see how it is once we get out there.
Yeah, I mean, from what I remember, Loch Spelve was really nice, so
Yeah.
we can get there. That'll be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, anyway, enough nattering. We're going to get the line sorted and get this ship underway. Get ready to let that front go when I say, Joe. The wind will do the job for us.
Our sail out of Ardfern and down Loch Craigness was really quite nice and calm. However, that all changed when we got into some more open water.
We're making pretty good progress, heading up into the Sound of Luing, Luing, don't know how to say it, probably never will. They come to rescue us. Interrupted by a rescue helicopter coming to save us, or at least to save Joe and Skylar. It's pretty blowy. Pretty bumpy, but we're going along well, averaging about over 5 knots I would say most of the time. Like I say, we're only on the head sail because it is pretty blowy, and no point going too crazy when I have my 2 special guests on board. Joe's currently hiding inside, not from the fear, just because it's pretty cold out here in the wind, so there's no point us both being out here shivering. So we are still got about 15 miles to go. Keep this pace, just shy of 3 hours, so yeah, that won't be too bad. So I think we're going to lose a bit of this sea once we get up into further up into land. We've just passed the Gulf of Carvecchian in the back, and I think we caught a bit of sort of waves and stuff coming out of there because the wind was coming from that direction. Yeah, so far pretty decent sail. Patrick's behaving, doing a job well. Yeah, so it's going to keep plugging on, and hopefully we'll get to Loch Spelve before the night time. Well, almost up to the top of the Sound of Hollowing, however you say it, and yeah, we are absolutely flying. I mean, the tide's with us now. We are pushing over 8 knots, which is pretty impressive to say that we are still on the just on the head sail. Yeah, we've got to squeeze between these 2 lighthouses. I say squeeze, it's probably about a mile gap, but always looks very narrow on the charts. And yeah, we're doing well. We'll be spat out the end of here soon. Not sure what the waves and wind are going to be like once we get out of this sound, should we say? But yeah, making good time. About 11 miles left. Hour and a half if we could handle this, keep going at this speed, but obviously we are going to lose the tide, so I'm going to guess we're probably still a couple of hours off. But yeah, lots of boats. Just had a real near pass with a sailboat which was going pretty hell for leather. A couple of times it really looked like it was going to crash into us, but he turned away at the last moment, thankfully. Yeah, autopilot's still doing its job. Steering better than I can, so it's been doing that for about an hour and a half now, so I just kind of left it, and yeah, it looks like we're about to go into the rough waves with the tide here. She's emerging. Yeah, we're just crossing the I don't know, whatever the bit of water is between where we were and the Isle of Mull, and because the wind's coming basically straight from the Atlantic, we're picking up some pretty decent sized waves. So far Hat-Trick's doing a really good job. Still comfortably going 5+ knots, mostly around 6, but yeah, it is a bit rolly. It's a bit of a cruel start for Joe's trip to get her sea legs, but I guess it's a kill or cure thing. But she's doing great. So we've finished crossing over to the Isle of Mull. We're just heading into the entrance of Loch Spelve now. So we've just got to navigate the pretty tight and treacherous entrance, but I think we should be okay. We have done it once before, but we didn't crash. Maybe that was luck more than judgment. But yeah, how's your first day on the boat been, Joe?
It's testing. That was quite a rocky crossing for me. I've never actually got seasick on the boat, even on salty, but I did feel it a bit today on that crossing. It was quite rocky, so I had to brave the cold and come outside so I didn't vom everywhere.
Yeah, it was a pretty, like, the first half, or the first 2/3, maybe even 3/4 were really good, to be fair. The wind was good, we were doing good speeds. As we came out of the Sound of Hollowing, we hit a real sort of pretty big side swell. I mean, big for us, you know, a metre plus, I'd say, which was rolling the boat. But while we were sailing, it was actually going really nice. You know, the boat was pretty stable. The waves were she was rolling with it quite nicely. But then as further up here we got, the less wind we had, and once we lost the wind, it was pretty horrible. But now we're sort of in the lee of the land, so it's nice and stable. And like I say, once we get inside of here, it should be a pretty nice evening, I think. So we're going to head up to the north side, drop anchor there, and I think we're both ready for some dinner. You got to like aim straight at the rocks and then just turn it up at the last second. Not disconcerting at all. So it's the afternoon of the next day, and it was actually quite a bumpy night. It was super sort of peaceful and beautiful all evening, and then I guess about midnight the wind started to pick up and it sort of pushed on all through the night, and by the morning it was quite rough. We were sort of getting bounced about quite a lot, and the wind was howling overhead. Skylar? Yeah, but by morning it was pretty rough. You want to do the intro, Skylar? So yeah, so by the morning though it was pretty rough. The wind was blowing quite strong, so we've actually decided to we've ended up moving across to the other side of Loch Spelve. We were thinking about heading further north, but the wind isn't great to do that today because the wind's coming from the north, and we had a fairly long day yesterday, so we decided we'd stay another night in Loch Spelve. So we've moved over to the other side of the loch, where the mussel farms are, or at least the headquarters for the mussel farm. We've just been doing some work this morning, but we're about to take Sky to shore because she's super excited and wants to get off the boat, and we're going to go over to the mussel farm because apparently rumour has it that you can actually buy mussels there, so we may pick some up if that's possible. It's still really windy over here, but we're a bit more sheltered, so at least it's not sort of wavy like it was over the other side, so it might be a slightly damp and exciting trip to the other side of the loch, but we'll see how we go. But one way or another we've got to take Sky to shore, so let's go.
Once ashore, we took Skylar for a little wander around the place, enjoying the beautiful scenery here. And then we headed over to the mussel farm.
Where like this, with amazing mussels available. Like fishy that.
We haven't, like I said, really done anything. We got back, we had our mussels, which were lovely, and then we haven't really done anything, just sort of been lounging around. We've sort of got a plan for tomorrow, and we are at the mercy of the tide. So to get out of here, we want to go or be around the sort of mouth of the loch about 1 o'clock, Tim reckons, and then we're going to head north and just see what the wind's doing, because it's not in our favour at the moment. So we'll see what happens with that, but we are planning on going north. If the conditions are right, then we might head up around the top of the Isle of Mull, and if not, then we're heading over towards like the mainland Oban side of things, and we're going to find somewhere there. So it is now the following morning, and the wind finally dropped overnight. So this morning, Skylar and I were actually able to row over to the shore, and we've just been walking up and down, taking a few photos and things this morning. I really like taking the photos. It's quite therapeutic for me, and so it was actually really nice to come out and be able to get some photos. Not too much of the whale wildlife, but I got some really nice ones of Skylar in the little flowers that they've got out here, which is really nice. I'm really pleased with some of those. But we're now going to head back to the boat because I'm very hungry, so I'm going to wake Tim up and have some breakfast, and then we can figure out what we're going to do with our day.
Before we get on, since the ICC...
We've held off this morning leaving because the tides aren't right until about lunchtime to get out of Loch Spelve, so it's just after 11 now, so we are basically, as you can hear, engines warming up. We're getting ready to leave. So we made it out of Loch Spelve, fairly uneventful. We did almost get run down by a fishing boat. No, just kidding. They were very courteous and went around us, but it wasn't the tightest bit. Joe's currently taking photos of the dinghy, as photographers do. So now we're out here, as you can probably tell. It's very calm, which is nice. But there's not much wind, which is less nice. I am seeing some boats ahead with their sails up, but I'm not convinced that they're not fake sailing / motor sailing, should we say. So given the lack of wind, I think we're going to head north into the Isle of Mull channel, or Sound of Mull, or whatever you call it. Basically the bit that goes over the north of the Isle of Mull. Reason being that if we've got hours of motoring, we might as well go that way, because if we go that way, then in theory we could go out at the end of that and up to Skye, which is kind of our stretch goal. Not convinced we're going to achieve it, but we've got to be slightly aware. It's Friday today, on Tuesday there is a big storm coming, bigger than the one that I had to hide up West Loch Tarbert for, so we do need to be aware of that and make a plan for where we're going to be for that. I think given that the three of us now, we'll probably aim to be in a marina for that, just so that, not so much for the shelter, but more for just so that we're not trapped aboard, cooped up here for a day and a half or whatever, so at least can go off and explore a little bit on land. So Tobermoor is an option. It's a bit close, but we need a second option if we make it further than that. So we're still heading sort of north up the east side of the Isle of Mull. Unfortunately still on motor because we are literally just directed to the wind. Hopefully once we get round the sort of corner and start going on the northern side of Mull, well, if the wind stays in this direction we should be able to sail, but I will bet you a shiny gold coin that the wind will be coming straight on our nose once we make the turn. We're actually going to go up to a little bit further, up to Salem Bay. It's not quite sheltered, but there's not going to be much wind tonight. The reason we decided to do that is we've been sort of looking at the charts to make some plans while we've been motoring along, and I think the plan is tomorrow to try and push on and do some decent miles to get round into the Sound of Arshag, or Arshag. Apologies again for pronunciation. The weather is not great tomorrow, but if we set off early, hopefully we won't be fighting the wind too much. It's going to be right on our nose for a lot of it, but if we can get up and out of there, then that gives us lots of options for places to go on Tuesday. We might go up somewhere like Mallock, which I think will be pretty sheltered, and we can be in the marina, and there's a few bits and bobs to do up there. So yeah, so we're tooling along. Patrick and Mr. Penta are doing okay, touch wood. We're not making much progress. We only did about 3 knots, but that's because we're into the wind and into the tide. But yeah, another half hour or so, we'll turn the corner and then maybe we'll get the sails out. And yeah, hopefully sail all the way up to our anchorage. So we're still chugging along on the motor. I mean, so far so good, I guess. Been a bit of a sucky day, if I'm honest. Like I say, just motor, doesn't matter which direction we go. The wind is straight in our face, which, to be fair, I kind of suspect it was going to happen. The wind was coming from the north as we were heading north, you know, up the east side of Mull. So I thought, well, maybe if it stays that way, we can turn, when we turn to the west to go into the Sound of Mull, we'll be able to sail. But I kind of suspected that what would happen is the wind would be funneled down the Sound of Mull and we'd be heading straight into it. So yeah, so as soon as we turned, the wind turned with us. So it sucks. We're also fighting tide. It was bad time to come up here, which we kind of knew as well. But unfortunately, we picked a good time to leave Loch Spelve, and not a great time. So we're losing about, I don't know, half a knot, something like that, but it does mean we're only pushing about 2 knots. We're coming through the narrow, sort of between the rocks at the entrance to the Sound of Mull. Once we get through this little narrow section, I'm hoping that we'll probably gain another knot on the speed. Currently it's about an 8 o'clock arrival, which is a little later than hoped, but I feel like we're going to gain a bit and we'll probably be about 7 o'clock. So yeah, so everything's still chugging along. Done a couple of jobs down below, just fixing a leak on the toilet and draining out some of the bilges and things like that, just to fill some time. But yeah, onwards we go.
So we're still chugging along here, heading up the Sound of Mull. We've got past the worst of the tidal stream, so we have picked up a bit of speed now. We're actually doing about 3.5 knots, which is really good compared to what we have been doing. The wind is still not in our favour, but we'll see. Hopefully when we get around this next bit, it might be, but Tim seems to think it's just funneling down the gap between the mainland and the Isle of Mull, which would make sense. So we'll see how we get on, but yeah, finally making some progress.
So after about 5 boring hours of motoring, the wind for the very first time is not right on our nose, so I've just stuck the head sail out. Got a little less than an hour to go, so I'm not going to get too excited about it. We'll keep the engine running for a minute, but yeah, nice to be sailing with 4.3 knots, which is great because at times today we've been doing about 1.2 knots against the tide, things like that. So yeah, it should speed us along and get us to our anchorage a little bit earlier. So the sailing was short-lived, unfortunately. Literally I had to sail out for probably 5 minutes and then the wind swung around straight onto our nose again and wasn't helping. We've actually changed plans slightly though. While I was sort of looking at the chart on the way up, I noticed there's actually an anchorage on the opposite side of the Sound of Mull. It's very small. If there's anyone in there already, we might not be able to get in there. It's a bit of a risk heading over there, but because it's on the northern side, it should be a bit more sheltered from the wind and waves, I hope. If we can't get in there, then we can still go back to our original one, which is just taking the other side, on the southern side. But yeah, I'm just kind of concerned that we're going to get knocked around quite a bit if we go into that anchorage, given the wind and wave direction.
So we have now made it to our anchorage, and I think we're pretty good where we are. Tim's just been to shore with Skylar just so she can go to the toilet, and although it is still quite windy, it doesn't feel too bad here. So yeah, hopefully we're going to be here now all right for the night. I'm just warming up some dinner, some spaghetti bolognese, which is going to be lovely. Tim made it the other day, and yeah, hopefully it'll be a nice quiet night and we're not going to have to worry too much. Okay, so slight change of plan. Tim didn't like that spot just because of how close we were to the rocks. So what we're actually going to do is now move over to our original plan, which is about half an hour away. And hopefully that's it is a bigger anchorage, so we'll be a bit more safe there. Okay, so we've actually been here on anchor a few hours now, and although when we got here it was quite rocky, it has settled down now and it is a much sort of nicer anchorage for us. We're not going to have to worry if the wind changes. We've got loads of room here compared to where we were, so although it was annoying having to move, I think really it was the right decision that we could have made given the circumstances. So it's about 10 o'clock now. Not that you'd know it, it is so light here still. And Tim has just taken Sky to shore one last time before going to bed. And our plan tomorrow is to get up quite early. We've got about a 30-mile trip to do. I forget the bay that we're going to. Tim knows what it's called, thankfully. But yeah, it's about 30 miles away. So we're planning on getting up at 6, leaving by 7. So it's just going to be a case of Tim taking Skylar to shore first thing, and then just getting sort of just ready to go really. So that's where we're going to leave it for today, and we shall see you in the morning. Next time we leave the Isle of Mull behind as we head north to the beautiful Bay of Ariseg. We then have a rough crossing to the port of Maleg, where we go to hide from the storm.